on this theme. And though sometimes as he's singing of the body, he seems to rip it apart in a Dionysian sparagmos. He reminds us at the end of the Body Electric, "Oh, I say, there are not the parts and poems of the body only, but of the soul. Oh, I say, now, these are the soul." In her essay, Eros, Eroticism and the Pedagogical Process, Bell Hooks laments the fact that in a lot of pedagogy, the body is separated from the mind. In a critique of pedagogy, we come to think of the classroom as this place where this pure mind goes on the cognitive process, and that the body is somehow left at the door. And she laments and she says, "Trying to remember the bodies of my professors, I find myself unable to recall them. I hear a voice, remember fragmented details, but very few whole bodies." So I want to take this moment to sing, in the spirit of Whitman, of McDermott's whole body, because a lot of our memories of him are precisely these very sensorial, experiential, embodied accounts. And when I begin to try to describe McDermott, I don't say, "Oh, he edited the James letters, he has these accolades." I talk about pipes and hats and chalk dust. So just very quickly, I just want to go through eyes, ears, hands, and nose. Because as I was sitting here listening to McDermott speak, and hopefully you all had the same experience, you brought back to your encounter with the sensorial McDermott. And if you just take a moment to remember the first time you saw McDermott. And for me, it was room 408, academic building, right? And windows, and even here we are in this space, no windows, it's kind of chalkboards, one on the side. And the first time we saw McDermott, he comes in, here I am, a 19-year-old know-it-all, he kind of comes in, and at first, the encounter with McDermott is contradictory, paradoxical, dialectic, if you will. Small, almost fragile, graying, shoulder impaired, as he said. But at the same time, it was powerful, it was potent. You knew something was going to happen. Always well-dressed in a suit, a man of style with the hats, but underneath that there was this Dionysian torrent, this kind of rage that was occurring. So you see him, and you kind of immediately, kind of on the qui vive, what's up, what's going on here. He comes out with the props, right? Like he's a doctor, opens the bag, and the way I took it was like a priest preparing for the liturgy. The bottle of Perrier, the bag with the chalk in it, the manila folders, rubber bands, always rubber bands, right? Always rubber bands around his way. And usually some book that had been ravaged, just erotically falling apart. And I remember he had one book, maybe you can remind me, that he said he dropped in the snow. And at the time, a lot of these things just hang with you, and you don't really get McDermott until 10 years later, and this thing comes back. And now that I live in New York City, I understand the trauma of dropping a book in the snow. And so that comes back to me. So this kind of visual encounter with McDermott, but it's a double movement, it's double barrel, because not only were you seeing McDermott, but he was seeing you. Okay, and I'd like to coin a color. He always talked about de Kooning orange, but I'd like to coin a McDermott blue, because the eyes had that kind of unique color that was contradictory and paradoxical. They were like a coastal Caribbean water that was inviting, cool, clear, biodiverse, but also like the deep sea, dark, terrifying, potentially barren. So you had this kind of reaching in, but also this kind of depth and terror that was part of the McDermott blue. And you always know that as you were looking at him, even if he wasn't looking at you, he saw you. Ears, the logos, the speech of McDermott. And so just in solidarity with our Polish friend, you don't have to speak English to... half the time we didn't know what McDermott was saying. So that's not something that has to do with language. So a lot of this... But it was this aesthetic kind of brilliance that he was both aware of, but he just did kind of naturally. It was the absences of McDermott's speech. It was the onomatopoeias. It was the mumbles that went off. And then you lean in, and when you lean in, BAM! Sex and death, right? We have a word for this movement, and the movement is dialogue, communication. He leaned into you, and he invited you to lean back into him. Touch. The organ of pragmatism is the hand. And McDermott, if he didn't get in your face and grab you, then you weren't in a McDermott classroom. And I have bruises. So, hitting you in the middle of class. So that was the other thing. I won't go into chalk. I know we have a short time, but I understand now, McDermott, why you used multicolored chalk. Because as you said, this stuff can't be done monochrome. It can't be done with white on black. It's shaded, it's spectral, and you have to use all of these colors to even begin to do this. And that leads, of course, to smell. And I won't even go into the pipe, but you always, McDermott, that was part of his extension, was the smell, and he made us all incense guys. And so I sing of the body, we have to do this short, so Whitman says it's so much better, so I'll close, just reading from Whitman, I Sing the Body Electric. The expression of the body of man or woman balks account. The male is perfect, and that of the female is perfect. The expression of a well-made man appears not only in his face, it is in his limbs and joints also. It is curiously in the joints of his hips and wrists. It is in his walk, the carriage of his neck, the flex of his waist and knees. Dress does not hide him. The strong, sweet, supple quality he has strikes through the cotton and flannel. To see him pass conveys as much as the best poem, perhaps more. You linger to see his back and the back of his neck and shoulder side. And so we all here in our own ways are here not to only sing of all of your great philosophical accolades, but your embodied presence, its beauty, its lessons, its terror, its possibility, its infinite manifestations, and eventually its death. And McDermott, beloved McDermott, our great teacher, you balk account. And we are here to linger, to catch as many glimpses of you as we can. Thank you very much.